Thank you. This is madness. Look at this. I'm in a cinema. Wow. Good morning. Hello. I will give you this warning. When I wrote these slides, I didn't realize this room had a huge cinema screen behind me. So this may have been a mistake. Yeah. Hi. Hi. I'm Gary. I wanted to tell you a story about how I actually came to be standing here in this crazy cinema today. No, you're not watching Dune 2, Raf, I saw that. This is a talk about how I managed to end up here, where I am today, in this room. It starts a long time ago. That's me, if you didn't recognize, the one with hair, believe it or not. That's me. I mean, that's an old photo, right? I'm betting there's a few people in this room who don't even know what that joystick that I'm using is. It's like an old school photo. But I've always been interested in technology. I've always loved it. And really, we have to start with my journey to university. That was a long time ago as well. I went to university in Leicester. I think it was 1997, maybe. Sounds about right. I failed university. It's fine. I was more interested in actually working for a company called Business Gas on their database. I was doing a computer science degree and ended up being able to earn, I think it was 30 pence a record that I fixed. So I was actually living in student accommodation with students, but earning actual money. So I was like the king of the students or something, because everyone else was really poor, and I was actually doing only about 4 hours a day work. It was awesome. I actually failed university twice, but I mean, the second story you'll have to come and find me for, because we haven't got time. You may have noticed, like, I do have a slight accent. I don't know if you've picked that up. I'm from a small town in South Wales. If you follow Premier League football, you may know Swansea. They were in the Premier League. Don't whoop at Swansea, jeez, man. So it's pretty close to Swansea. It's a small town called Port Talbot. Been in the news quite a lot recently, sadly. Just for reference, I think we're somewhere around there. Is that roughly correct? I don't know. It's fine. But that's where I come from. And there's a really interesting thing about the town of Port Talbot. This is what you get if you do an image search on Amsterdam, right? Pretty cool. I mean, there's bicycles and canals and everything you would typically associate with Amsterdam. Pretty beautiful, pretty colorful. This is what you get if you do an image search for Port Talbot. The town is kind of dominated by one thing, which is it used to be the biggest steel plant in Europe. This is absolutely factual. This is the view off the decking that I have outside my house. So this is the real view from outside of my own house. And just to prove it, there I am on my balcony outside my house. So this is the view. The town is just dominated by this huge steelworks. So that's where I started my actual programming career. Or I should say not programming, but IT career. I just failed the second attempt at university. Really, I didn't fail. I quit because I got offered a job in British Steel. And the job was doing something I wanted to do if I'd finished university anyway, working in IT. British Steel is now, I think it was called Chorus, and now I think it's called Tata Steel or something, who knows. But it was great. It's an opportunity. The one thing about living in a town with a huge steelworks dominating it is there's plenty of employment opportunities. So I went to work there. I loved it. Does anyone remember the Y2K bug? Any old school people here? Yeah? Yeah, the Y2K bug was great, right? So for those who didn't know, there was some, I mean, it doesn't sound like programmers to me, but some short-sighted programmers in the 70s stored years as 2 digits instead of 4. And so when we rolled over to 00, nobody knew what the hell any of the software was going to do to handle this stuff. And I was really lucky. So in 1999, I went to work in the steelworks trying to figure out which things were Y2K compliant and which things weren't. So I was doing my dream, living my dream, working in computers. Well, actually, what I was doing was phoning people up and saying, part A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, is that Y2K compliant? And they'd say, yes, and I'd mark it on a spreadsheet. And that was my job in computers. But I was really lucky because I also found another fantastic thing that I've used ever since, which is a piece of software called MAME. Anyone know what MAME is? Yeah? MAME is awesome. It's an emulator that lets you play old school arcade games on any device that you want. So at this point, I was doing kind of 50% phoning people up and marking off spreadsheets and then phoning other people and saying, you're more smart than me, can you go and fix this actually non-compliant piece of hardware? And 50% of the time I was playing MAME ROMs, so it's all good. Does anyone know this game? You can shout out. Gauntlet, yes, thank you. I'll put that back in now so you can see, it's fine. So yeah, I was working, but I wasn't really, enjoying myself. I was doing a job that was kind of IT adjacent, so that was good. But I was spending more and more time playing MAME ROMs and less time doing actual work. Excuse me. I was also doing a little bit of work on the side. You can imagine the amount of data that's gathered in a huge steelworks. It's quite a lot of data moving around. There's a lot of these process control screens where people who are sitting in jump desks with molten steel rolling past them. It's pretty cool, but pretty scary. And then they've got these screens where they can see the thickness of the steel at this point and the temperature of the steel at this point. And all that stuff was just stored in an Oracle database. But the licenses for these process control screens were insanely expensive. And I'm like, well, it's only stored in a database. Surely we can, do some read-only reading of that database and display it. We had a company intranet. This is old school stuff, right? We had a company intranet. I guess they kind of come back into vogue a little, but we had a company intranet. So I'm like, how can we take data from this database and store and display it cheaply and easily on the company intranet? So I found out these things. We were a full Microsoft shop, so we had SQL Server, we had Internet something, information server. Thank you, Tace, yes. So we can do this. We can do active server pages. It's great. I had a lot of fun trying to find images for classic old school ASP. This was one of my favorite because it's like, the person in the marketing department who okayed this image was like, oh, running ASP is like rolling a dice? Is that the look they were going for? I'm like, Getting it to work is like trying to stack dice end on top of each other. I'm like, this is not a good marketing image. But I loved it. I was really enjoying. I was actually doing some software development, really enjoying it. And I was also playing a lot of Counter-Strike at the time, old school Counter-Strike. And Counter-Strike was so much fun. Everyone was in a clan. However good you were or bad you were in some kind of clan. And there were really serious competitions. Most of the competition was around who had the best clan website, as opposed to like who was best at clicking on heads in the game. So I'm at home thinking, I should be trying to use the skills I'm doing in work, but for my own fun and for my Counter-Strike clan, but I couldn't afford Microsoft licenses, right? Crazy amount of money at the time to run ASP. And I found this free open source version of ASP, as I thought of it at the time. PHP, personal homepage, or PHP hypertext preprocessor, which is PHP too much recursion, you know? It's a really cool PHP joke for the people who aren't at the PHP conference here. So just because you didn't laugh, I'm going to think it's because you didn't know the joke. It's fine. So yeah, I found PHP. PHP is great. Along with MySQL, you can spin this stuff up really cheap. There's 1 million shared hosts that will allow you to really quickly and easily spin up some data-backed websites. You didn't have to be any good at programming, which was a bonus at the time. So yeah, here we go. Here's one of my first ever websites that I made using PHP. I've had so much fun with the Wayback Machine doing this. I mean, this is pretty, I bet people could date this from the style of the website, right? 2 columns, a thing, and some news. We had news, which was from a database. We had results coming in. We had a login where people could log in. They couldn't do anything, but they could log in. We were the coolest Counter-Strike clan. The really cool thing about finding these websites on the Wayback Machine was when I looked at the next snapshot that came from the web archive. It was this. Yeah. Say nothing, right? I have no idea. I don't remember that far back. My SQL connection failed. Yeah, okay, fine. Let's blame the host. So yeah, I was working. I was doing a job that I was actually enjoying. I was still playing some MAME ROMs. Anyone know this game? No takers. In the arcade, this had an actual gun on it. It's called Operation Wolf. Anyone remember it now? Yes, you're not as old as me. It's fine. So yeah, it's time to move on. I did what everybody does once they've got just enough knowledge to get by. I became a contractor and earned tons more money doing something I was doing on contract. I was miserable. I was also a really bad developer. If your metrics are things like code reusability, OOP, dry, all of those things that we come to think about, I was awful. But I was kind of in demand a lot because I was an okay developer if your metric was, shit, we need something done and it has to be done in 7 days, otherwise we're in trouble, we'll phone Gary, which was fine, you know, it was great. I did a lot of short-term, short-lived projects. I did a marketing, an XML generator for a Flash application that Intel were using to help resellers see how many points they'd scored. And that website was only up for 3 months. I was up at like 4 a.m. trying to import the data from an Excel spreadsheet into the database by hand, pretending to everyone that it was all automatic. It was cool. But I wasn't a very good developer at this point. I mean, I don't think I'm you know, pinnacle of development right now, but I certainly wasn't very good then. The interesting thing is I'm not going to talk you through my entire job history because we only have like 40 minutes, and yeah, we'd need longer. But I went to work for a company called Vivo Digital. This is, again, this stuff, I'm sorry, this is just to amuse myself. Digital signage, it was a big thing back then. We could have TVs and they could have updating signs on them, and they were, even Alan Sugar got involved. It was awesome. So we were an IPTV company that did digital signage. And the interesting thing about this job for me is because it was a point where I thought, we need to make modules for our customers and we need to be able to turn them on and off. At this point, I was still genuinely writing PHP that was like include database.php, include functions.php. So not doing any kind of MVC type work. But I'm like, there's got to be a way that I can do this without writing like some kind of module manager myself. So I Googled PHP modular framework, as you do. Comic Sans was like really popular then. That's the only reason I've used it there. It's fine. And I saw this, Zen framework. We were already using Zen. We were using something called Zen Guard, so that when we shipped code on a server, it got, I mean, it wasn't encrypted. It got obfuscated, I guess, is the correct phrase. I mean, yeah, terrible product. No idea why we were using it. It was what it was. But we had brand familiarity with Zen, so started using Zen framework. This is like a big red letter day. I'm like, wow, you don't actually have to do work with the PHP and the same thing as the HTML. And yeah, wow, loved it. And then I thought, now I'm an amazing developer, right? I found an MVC framework. I can separate all my code from my presentation, from my data access. I'm a fantastic developer. Now, I was even worse, I think, at this point, because I thought I was a great developer, but didn't realize that I wasn't so good. The main thing was I had so many questions. I'd been working in software now for a few years, but I'd always been working as a single or duo, a pair of developers. I hadn't been working in big developer teams where you can kind of get questions answered from people who've got more experience than you. So I found I was using something called IRC already. Like, that's where all the Counter-Strike clans hang out in IRC. It's like IRC for the younger people in the audience is like Discord, but was better. I was using IRC anyway, so it was all good. So there was a Zen framework channel, ZF Talk. There's going to be some people in this room who I can see who have some good stroke bad memories of hash ZF Talk. It was awesome fun. This is where I had like the big epiphany of, okay, I'm not just me sitting in a room developing software. There's like so many of us out there in the world. And we all have opinions and ideas, and we can share those. We can answer questions. We can ask questions. It's kind of where I discovered there was a community around this job. It's awesome. I met a couple of people who would be rude if I didn't shout out. Ryan Mauger relentlessly asked my questions, which I thought were about Zen framework, but actually looking back, were mainly about object-oriented programming that I didn't understand. It's fine, thank you, Ryan. Rob Allen's in the audience, again, relentlessly answering my questions. Thank you, Rob. Kat as well, fantastic. So much patience. I have to thank these people. I mean, look at the size of those cards. Let's move on. It's fine. Interestingly, Rob and Ryan kind of pushed me into taking another big step, which is actually attending an in-person event. So instead of hanging out with people in a room, you've all done that. Is anyone's first event, first conference in the room? Anyone willing to admit? Congratulations. It's really nice to see. This is going to be awesome. You'll go back to work renewed and enthusiastic and with new contacts and new people. It's so useful. I went to the first ever PHP Southwest user group meetup. It's now a massively successful user group in the UK. That is me. You can just see my hands and my belly poking out from behind the side there. That was a lot of fun, and actually meeting people who were names on an IRC terminal was scary, but so rewarding. Please work. Wrong button. Meanwhile, I was still working on digital signage. Once again, MAME ROMs had taken over doing my real job. I was bored. Anyone know this game? Yes, Ghosts and Goblins, classic. Still play this, I love it. So it's time to move on. Again, I'm not going to go through all of my jobs. You have other talks to go to. While I could stand here for 3 hours and talk, I'm not going to. So, yeah, I went to work for a company called Microcosm Games. That's a grand title for a company right there. And Microcosm Games was a software shop that made games for Facebook. Back in the golden days of Facebook. So we actually had a Lord of the Rings license, which is insane for a team of 5 developers, or 5 people, only 3 developers, based out of Cardiff in South Wales, had an actual legal Lord of the Rings license. So our main game was this game called The One Ring. It was so good, because writing games on Facebook then meant you try anything you can to get people to click that allow button. And once they click that allow button, you've got all of their data and you can spam all of their friends. It was fantastic. I mean, we wrote games, right? Databases with pretty front ends that encouraged you to log in regularly and click buttons. That's what they were. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. That was a ton of fun. The interesting thing about what happened when I was at this job was that I made my first ever pull request to an open source project. Actually, this isn't technically my first ever pull request. This is my first ever pull request since Zen Framework moved on to GitHub. Before that, you had to sign a deal with the devil in your own blood and then print out your patch and put it in an envelope and post it somewhere. I don't remember how things were done then, but it was, yeah, this is the first pull request I did in GitHub. I'd only have done 1 or 2 before this. The interesting thing about this, 11th of November 2011, wow. The response the maintainer of Zen Framework gave me: reviewed, merged, and pushed. Nice commit, particularly the tests. I'm like, that's the way to welcome someone into your open source project with their first contribution. But my favorite part about that is particularly the tests, because the change I made to the tests was add 3 characters. And I got a compliment for adding 3 characters to a test. So, hey, it's all good. Yeah, Matthew Irafini's become a real good friend and has helped me immeasurably over the years, so I should probably thank Matthew. Wonderful human who I don't get to see often enough. I've just given away my own joke. My question was, can I go back? My question was, and I'm sure nobody will get it, what was the first thing I did after I got my first contribution to the Zen Framework merged? Anyone? Get drunk is a good question. Somebody knows me, but no, it wasn't get drunk. is update my CV. That was the big joke that I spoiled. Because I'm now a contributor to the Zen framework, right? It's true, it's fact. 3 characters, and I'm now a contributor to the Zen framework, right? And that can go on your CV. It's fine. I am a contributor to an open source project. And whichever open source project you use, if you use Laravel, I don't know any of the open source projects that you may be using if you're an app developer, sorry. But whichever ones you use, they're desperate for contributions, and contributing to an open source project makes you a contributor that is something that has value to future employers. That's fact. If you're working with Laravel, which I'll probably use now as an example, and somebody's after a Laravel developer, and you can say, oh yeah, I contribute to Laravel, I contribute to the actual code that runs the framework, that has real value to employers. Contributing is scary, and I guess this comes to the crux of the talk. Contributing is scary, right? Especially if you've come from like sitting in a room on your own, putting your code out there into the wide world can be like pretty scary because you're worried people are going to judge you. Oh, my code isn't good enough. I don't really think I know what I'm doing. Imposter syndrome. All of these things make contributing scary. But the way I came to look at it is, if I make a pull request, I get people who are smarter than me, who know the project better than me, to give me free code reviews. I'm essentially getting somebody to say, oh, this code could be better if you do X, which is essentially free learning, right? It's just free learning. You're literally learning something for free from people who know this framework better than you. So there's just nothing to lose there. The other thing I came to realize is that most people do want you to get your shit merged into the project. Most people want you to get your stuff merged. Then I met Marco Pavetta. Hi, Marco. Look how young you look there, Marco. It's awesome. Marco is like open source machine. Thankfully slowing down a little now, but back then, Marco's a complete open source machine. So I'd make a pull request, and I'd think, okay, I know this isn't going to be 100% right, but I'm committed to making the changes that the maintainers want me to make so that I can get my stuff merged. I'm really enjoying getting contributions merged. I'm really enjoying being part of that community. And then Marco's like, okay, can you do this? And then Marco's like, could you do that? And Marco, Gary, can you do this? Yes, Marco. Can you do that? Marco, can you? Gary, you haven't done, you know this better. Come on, Gary, can you do this? Marco, yes, Marco, I'm sorry. That little Mario used to haunt my dreams. Even when I'm like not doing open source work and doing pull requests at work, I'm still thinking, I wonder if Marco's going to see this and give me a code review. Yeah. Marco's always watching. You can't get one past Marco. But thank you, because honestly, you taught me so much, you know. Like, I wouldn't be where I am without people like Marco and other people in the open source community giving me free code reviews. I learned so much. It's wonderful. It's free learning. Yeah, I guess I was still doing a job, but I was doing more and more open source contributions. These two people had dragged me to an actual conference, PHP Northwest in 2012. It's like, I know that's pixelated, but that's how pixelated the internet was in 2012. That's not like me who's done that. It's fine. 2012, good gracious me. Makes me feel old. I met Laura and Evan there, wonderful people who've been really, really helpful to me. I gave my first talk at the Unconf. First ever talk. 4 out of 5 stars, come on. The fact that there were 6 people in the room and they were all my friends and I still only got 4 out of 5 stars tells you more than that will ever tell you. But hey, it's fine, it works. You know, work, we can run through a couple of the places that I went. Yamgo had Spruce, and I had, oh God, this was, oof. A pre-roll video ad agency. There's something really telling about this job. Really met some fantastic people there, but the CEO, I think they're doing some kind of crypto reward scheme now under this brand, so that kind of tells you anything that you really want to know about that company. I was doing a lot of speaking. I suddenly thought, I really enjoy this speaking at conferences. So I started to try and submit to conferences. I was very lucky. You can see how Zen framework-centric my early talks were, because that was what I'd been contributing to. I knew a lot about the internals of components, particularly things like the service manager. So I could stand up and talk about that stuff quite comfortably. Still scary, because as soon as somebody started to ask questions about anything that wasn't that, I'm like, oh, no. I only know enough to stand in front of you and give this talk. I'm not, I don't know anymore. I came to the Dutch PHP conference for the first time back then. Awesome. I've loved this conference. This has been one of my favorite conferences of all time. I'm not a massive fan of some of the Dutch beer. I don't know, this was one, like there was an elephant or something, and it was, I didn't like. Again, probably should have thought about the huge screen behind me before putting this slide on screen. Interestingly, the company I work for now, Rove, kind of the seed of the idea of that came out of a social at the Dutch PHP conference many moons ago. This conference is awesome. Yeah, we kind of founded Rove, who I work for. We're a software consultancy agency. Kind of founded, really, at DPC, at a conference social. So, I guess we get to the meat and bones. We're running out of time. I know we were late starting, but we've only got about 5 minutes left. So, how do you start your contributions? If you're interested in contributing, come and find anyone in the Rove t-shirts. They'll help you to get started, no problem at all. Jump on our Discord is another good way. There's so many projects looking for contributors. I was talking to Juliet last night. PHPCS is desperate for some contributors, and there's some really nice issues marked with, good first pick or something. So code is the obvious one you can contribute with. If you're not comfortable contributing with code yet, then there's so many other things you can do. Triaging bugs is like one of the most underrated things you can do. Somebody puts a bug report into an open source project. Before somebody who actually wants to fix the bug gets to fix the bug, if you've just tried to reproduce the bug, and literally just written in the ticket, yes, I reproduced this on my system by doing this, that is so useful for the person who's going to come and fix the bug. And it's relatively straightforward to do, right? It's pretty simple to do. Tests, I mean, I guess I should lump that in with code, sorry. Yeah, code and tests are the same thing. But adding tests to projects are always useful. Answering questions on places like, Stack Overflow or Discord or whatever, really, really useful, and you make some really good relationships. Content, blog posts, videos. Docs are the big one. Like, I kind of made my name in Zen Framework by just trying to get the docs up to scratch a decade or more ago. That's where I focused a lot of my energies, because I was frustrated with the documentation, and so tried to improve it. You'll get a lot of love from any maintainer if you decide to spend some time on documentation. The important thing about contributing to open source is that it forces you to learn how that project works under the hood. I'm sorry, that looks way too professional. There we go. That's better. Contributing to a project makes you look at how the code works. In PHP land, it forces you into that vendor folder where you can look at how the code actually works instead of just consuming someone else's code. And knowing how the project works under the hood actually just makes you an expert in that technology. Like that, for me, that's all that separates the experts from the non-experts, is you know how something works rather than just consuming it. And being an expert in something has a massive benefit on your career. I said I contributed to Zen Framework straight on my CV, and I was only half joking when I said that, because being an expert in something, being a contributor to something, has a massive benefit on your career, including money. I'm a big fan of money, so anything I can do to earn more money, I'm okay with. Yeah, money, 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 money. I love it. The other thing that I guess a career in open source has done is it's made connections with other contributors. I'm looking around, I can see some friendly faces in the audience. Connections I've made through community. you know, community and open source really go hand in hand in my mind. Maybe, you know, they are separate things, but I think of the two things together. Connections are important to employees. Like, if somebody says to you, "Oh, do you know much about how PHP unit works?" and you say, "Oh, no, but I know Sebastian, so I can ask questions if I need to." That's actually important to employers. That really is important to employers. Don't undersell that. You know, that's worth money to employers. That's another way that you can improve your salary, is by saying, "Yeah, I hang out in a Discord with that guy. I've met that guy at an event. I've bought that. I know these people. I can get answers." It's really, really valuable. Another thing is, like, I've made so many good friends through open source. I mean, it's not money, but friendship's okay as well, you know. It's fine. We should gloss over that one. Yeah, meanwhile, I worked for Rove for a bit, then I played some MAME ROMs. Anyone knows? I can't hear, sorry. Yeah, don't look at that one, it's fine. Let's move on. I worked for JetBrains for a bit, doing this kind of thing for a living, speaking to people, making videos in developer relations. I loved it. That was kind of my job at JetBrains. It was, people used to tweet me and say, "Can I have a PHP Storm license, please?" That's kind of what I did there. It's all good. MAME ROMs, that one definitely is a MAME ROM. Pac-Land, that one's called. I used to play that in a real arcade game in my local cafe. I'm old. I worked at the BBC for a bit, actually worked in JavaScript, writing Node.js software, really enjoyed it. Tapped out, we haven't got time, we're running out of time. I worked for Twilio, back in developer relations, loved that job. Played some Outrun when I got bored of that. And now I'm back at Rove, back where I've been working, I love it. I'm available for hire. I guess the whole of the last 30 minutes was just for me to be able to say, "Hire me, I'm available at Rove." I'm not really looking for software work, but if you're looking for any developer relations work, if you want cool, kick-ass demos of your product built to engage developers, or any written or video work, you can find us. It's all good. I love Rove. I did want to thank a few other people, but we're really running out of time. So thanks, Derek. Thanks, Kieran. It's all good. This is definitely not worth skipping. This is what happens when I put a Google search in for Kieran to find a picture to put in this talk. This is quite scary. It's like a picture of me on the actual image search. I was like, what the hell? It's all good. Yeah, I guess to get back to the point, this is the point, I guess, where I managed to realize that there's more to my career than what I do in work. There's more ways to boost my career than what I did in work. Making this first open source contribution massively changed my life. It changed the course of my work, but it also changed the course of my life. I definitely wouldn't be here without that. I don't know why I wanted to put another promotion for Rove in. It's fine. It's all good. So yeah, I guess it's not all about the beer, the hot dogs, and the money. Open source has definitely improved me. I went to a conference in True North, PHP, a few years ago where I met Chris Arches, grumpy programmer, if you know him, my nemesis, I guess. More importantly, I met Ed Finkler, who got up on stage and opened up about how he suffers from some pretty serious mental illness and introduced me to a charity called Open Source in Mental Illness, where I actually, for the first time ever, confronted my mental illnesses and went to my GP and got prescribed medication that's massively changed my life. So yeah, while I love money, I guess I should say my health is more important, so that's kind of important too. But yeah, this has been incredible. Yeah, I think actually it is about the beer and the hot dogs and the money and bumper cars at a conference that I'm hoping there's rumors is coming back. And the money again, because I really like the money in case you didn't figure that out. And the friendship, I guess, yeah, that's the most important thing that's come to me through working through open source, is the friendship I made along the way. So yeah, if you're interested in getting started, you can genuinely change the trajectory of your career by becoming an expert in an open source library. You can honestly do it, and it's not as difficult as you would think. So come and find me, come and find anyone else from Rove. Hang out in our Discord, discord.gg/Rove, and hit me up, and I'll get you started. Yeah, open source changed my life, and I just wanted to thank you very much for coming and tell you to have a wonderful conference, because I'm so glad that the DPC is back. So thank you very much indeed.